Folks, it's time to dive into how family ranches can finally get those herd records straightened out to start making more confident decisions. Hey, I'm Shaye Warner, and I host the Casual Cattle Conversations podcast. Whether you are a seasoned rancher or just curious about the cattle world, this podcast dives into the stories, science, and strategies shaping the future of ranching. Let's get started and keep your herd ahead of the herd. Today, we are visiting with Jacqueline Lewis, and she was born and raised in Cheyenne, Wyoming. She grew up on her family's ranch just north of town. After earning a degree in management and marketing from the University of Wyoming and spending a few years in the financial world, she found her way back home to the ranch in 2005. Today, Jacqueline and her husband Daryl run the family operation and manage a growing herd of commercial Angus cattle. She lives on the ranch with Daryl and their two daughters, balancing family life with the day-to-day work of ranching. Jacqueline is a member of the CattleMax team, and she's going to provide so much insight to all of us about how to straighten out those herd records, why it really matters to our bottom line as ranchers, and really some specific tips for the family operation to make this happen, regardless of what platform, software, or pen and paper method you use. So with that, let's visit with Jacqueline. Want to boost your herd's profitability? Choose Red Angus, the beef industry's most favored female. Registrations are up 24% over the past decade thanks to their docile temperaments, adaptability, and premium carcass quality. The Red Angus Association of America has rebranded its feeder calf program as Angus Access and partnered with Breeder, giving commercial cattlemen cutting-edge digital tools that make it easier than ever to capture premiums. Elevate your operation with Red Angus. And after this podcast, tune in to Red Angus Remarks. All right, Jacqueline. Well, thank you for joining me today. We are going to be talking about herd records and how to make record keeping easy for the family ranch. So just thank you for being here for this conversation.
Of course. Thank you for having me today, Shaye.
So to kick things off, jumping right into it, why are having organized herd records so crucial to the American family farm or family ranch?
Sure. Well, in general, record keeping can stem from the old adage, you can't manage what you can't measure. Ranch records are not going to be any different. The more solid your ranch records are, the more informed your decision making is going to be, which undoubtedly will lead to that production success and just longevity of your ranch.
You brought up decision making. Do you want to touch a little bit more on that topic? I mean, you said you can't manage what you don't measure, but is there more in that decision making aspect that you want to highlight? Because I do think that is really important to the record keeping conversation.
Oh, absolutely. In order to kind of pinpoint it, it's hard to specifically say that a producer needs to do X, Y, and Z. The reason being is that everyone just kind of manages their operation a little bit differently. So what's important, I think, in terms of informed decision making is just to really hone in on what goals are going to be important for your operation specifically. Once you kind of figure out the direction you want to go, you're going to figure out what you need to record in terms of any kind of record keeping or data. And that is what I feel is going to lead you more to those informed decision makings down the road.
Absolutely. Now, when you think about the multi-generational ranch, why is it even more important that they are organized with their herd records? Because it's important for any ranch, but I just think maybe those multi-generational ones have an added layer of complexity.
They do. I have visited with many producers over the past few years, whether it's coming from the standpoint of they are getting ready to kind of pass along their ranch to family members that are, maybe kids, grandkids, nieces, and nephews. I've also visited with producers from the standpoint of where they're coming in to take over, maybe for grandparents or parents. I think it's crucial to appreciate the record keeping aspect of it because, for one, anytime that records can be passed along, again, you're going to have this nice kind of foundational sense of tracking trends trends that have been established for this operation. It can kind of serve as maybe a map for them in terms of directional ideas. The other really cool aspect, though, of record keeping within generational ranches is the fact that there's a sense of pride in it. So many times I visited with producers where they really look forward to kind of sharing how far back they're able to track their data. And having that sense of pride is going to serve as an incentive for the future generations to just kind of keep going and keep pushing that. And it's such a rare find anymore to see younger people who want to take over this type of business. It's not really there like it used to be. So it's a great appreciation, not only for the people who are taking it over, but then those who are passing it along in any kind of records that they can include in that.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. Now, I think it's important as we have this conversation that we talk about what organized herd records are, or maybe what they aren't. So do you have any personal experience in your role that you want to share to help listeners kind of get a gauge on what organized records do and do not look like?
Sure. From a personal standpoint, I can tell you that when my husband and I took over managing the family ranch years back, we were starting from scratch. There really was not any kind of established record keeping process that was going on. So we had to build on that. We had to figure it out. And it was a lot of trial and errors with our processes. But over the years, we have figured out the system that works for us. It has helped us, again, to kind of narrow in on those informed decision makings where we have been able to now grow our herd. It's been great because our girls have been involved in it since they have been little. So now that they're getting older, they're starting to kind of find their footing in terms of where they want involvement in the ranch. So we have one daughter who's incredible in terms of health treatments. The other one is really focused in more on handling measurements, running that scale head. So again, it's a process. I would consider our record keeping probably a fluid situation, just because as we grow, as we make these decisions, we are figuring out other areas that we want to start kind of tracking more. So it's important for us to just kind of include our girls in this, include them in the decision making, and figure out the best ways going forward how we can really refine our records.
I appreciate you sharing how your girls are involved, because I think that's always fun to hear how the next generation is already getting involved on the ranch. Now, I want to take some time to visit about some of the challenges that producers face when it comes to keeping organized records, because as we all know, ranchers have so much on their plates that sometimes things do just slip. So do you want to share what some of those challenges may be for family ranches?
Absolutely. Probably the first challenge that will always come to mind is just time. Ranchers by nature are just a busy breed of people. And given just the way things are nowadays, you're not just a rancher, you are wearing many hats in terms of covering your bases of all the things you need to get done. So I think time definitely comes into play on top of everything else that ranchers have to do. They come to realize we need some kind of record keeping. And it just hits them like, do I have enough room on my plate to handle this? So that is definitely a challenge. Another one is just kind of a fragmented system that they might be working from within. What I mean by that is they may have tried to kind of get some records down here and there, but they're scattered. You know, some of them might be tucked away in the warming room of your barn. Some of them might be in a drawer. They might be lost on your phone in virtual note taking. So that is a very overwhelming feeling for a lot of producers in terms of getting started with record keeping, to just understand where's that ideal starting point. Such things also that kind of serve as a challenge is the fact that typically it'll hit ranches where it's just one person who's responsible for holding all of these records. And that's a lot of pressure that just doesn't need to be applied to a single individual. With that comes, a more common experience of maybe human error in entering any kind of data. Maybe there's a gap in terms of how long they're actually able to kind of bring that data in, and just overall burnout when it's centered on just an individual person.
Hey folks, move cattle the modern way with At the Yards. At the Yards creates a win-win scenario for both ranchers and buyers. Ranchers gain more market control with the ability to feature their cattle on a nationwide platform in 24 hours or less with no hidden fees and streamlined bid notifications that come in via text. Buyers save time and resources by creating custom templates for cattle that fit their businesses and getting notifications when ranchers are selling cattle that meet those criteria. Fill out the Get Started form on attheyards.com to speak with a representative and learn how At the Yards allows you to move cattle the modern way. And that link is in the show notes. Do you see technology still being a burden or barrier for some family operations?
Absolutely. I would say that's probably one of the more recent challenges that has kind of shown up in the last few years. There's just that, I guess, hesitation or fear of kind of trying something new. The worry of whether or not, how's the learning curve on this? Am I going to be able to handle it? They know the added stress that there's no fighting technology. That's what's coming our way in every aspect of our life. And also, I think that what comes into that is another consideration of what it's going to cost them. Not just in a monetary sense, but also, again, in that time. How much time is it going to take them to really become comfortable with kind of integrating technology with their cattle records?
Okay. So I just want to list off some of those challenges that you mentioned for listeners to recap that. We talked about time constraints, fragmented systems with information kind of being in multiple locations, single person record keeping where one person is in charge of the majority or all of the record keeping. Then we just talked about technology. And all of those hit home for me in a lot of different ways. And I know will resonate with many others listening, but let's talk about some of the solutions. So if there's a person listening and maybe they know they need to change something with their record keeping strategy, where would you have them start?
I would say a good starting point, especially for someone who's coming in who really hasn't delved into it too deeply, is to just keep the mindset of keeping it basic and keeping it goal-driven. A big thing to keep in mind is the way, like I mentioned earlier, the way you're planning or hoping to run your ranch might be completely different than the guy a quarter mile down the road. So keep very focused on where and what you want to be doing with your operation. Moving on, in terms of the basics, all you really need to focus on as you're getting started is just that inventory. And I'm talking like your active animals, the ones that are walking around your pastures right now. Tying into that, that's very important as you're getting started, is some kind of identification method. I know you recently had a very good podcast on the various ways to kind of run that identification system. Utilize that. That's going to make for accurate record keeping not only now, but also down the road. Other areas to kind of tie into that in terms of active inventory and identification is just simply be aware of maybe that breeding status of those animals right now. Know where they're kind of hitting in your ranch cycle. Are they open? Are they exposed? Are they pregnant? This is going to give you very good footing to kind of go in and fill in the blanks for your records. Once you kind of have those basics down, you're going to want to figure out a way to record it. So there's various methods that you can use. Paper always seems to be a good and common starting point for a lot of people. But as with anything, you're always going to have some pros and cons to it. But paper is a very comfortable way. It's readily available. People just tend to get started in this route. It is, though, difficult to back up any of your paper records. Sharing can also be kind of a complicated part of that as well. The next type of method that is commonly used is kind of moving on to spreadsheets. So spreadsheets are great. They're going to hold a ton of information for you. Again, you're going to run into some obstacles with it. When it comes down to actually looking to cross-reference anything, it's pretty hard to do with multiple spreadsheets kind of floating around. The next kind of natural step is to look for that online cattle software that's going to help you. And absolutely, it's going to check the box in terms of being able to hold a lot of information, share that information, cross-reference that information. But what you're going to butt up against here is the fact that a lot of people don't have the comfort level just yet with that technology kind of being added in there, that they worry about that learning curve. And then they also they worry about having the costs again associated with it in terms of how long is it going to take to actually get started with it. But I think the most important thing to take away from this, no matter what method you decide to use, is just absolutely find that comfort level. Whatever works for you is what you're going to use on a consistent basis. And consistency is the key. If you like the notebook, you're going to stick with the notebook. You're going to keep that notebook up to date. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about the software, and that opens up so many doors. But I think sometimes maybe right away it might be a little overwhelming because there can be so many functionalities with it. And you want to, like you said, you start with that active inventory and those reproduction records and those health records. But so many platforms out there have so many other features that can help ranchers. So there's a learning curve for any age to make sure that you're using it to its fullest capacity sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. These methods here are almost what I consider just those rite of passages as people kind of get into the whole record keeping thing. So you're absolutely right. Technology can be a very hard thing right out of the gate.
So on family operations, do you really encourage producers to find a system that is friendly for multiple individuals, or just kind of keep it to that, one or two people who are in charge?
No, I think the more people you have involved in terms of knowing what's going on is going to help that family operation so much. It's going to take the pressure off. It's going to help them work in terms of talking and, again, kind of leaning towards those informed decisions that they need to do. And it's having a couple of people involved is great, but I think the more you have ready to grab the information, take note of the information, it's going to just help improve your records down the road.
Okay. Now, I think it's important, we talked about where to start with getting organized, but what if that means switching record-keeping platforms? Where do ranchers start if they want to switch platforms? Because we talked about time constraints. That takes some time. It's worth it, but it does.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So if you're from that standpoint where you maybe have some records and you're looking to just maybe refine them or up your game in any way, the best advice I could offer you is stick with what you have. I think a huge misconception that kind of comes along is that people think in order to change a platform or a system that their records have to be perfect. Perfection may come down the road. Where you really need to focus is just on progress. So really just kind of focusing on what you have and building off of that. A great starting point is going to be gathering everything, even if you have it kind of fragmented, like we said, or scattered. Get it all in one place. That's going to be an awesome starting point for you in terms of kind of figuring out how to add it into whatever platform or method you're choosing to go to. But again, you're going to circle back to wanting to really focus on that active inventory. Again, that's always a great go-to, a great starting point. One side note, though, that I would make here, Shaye, that needs to kind of be mentioned is a lot of people worry as they start adding in their active inventory about that historical data that's tied to it, whether it's their progeny, whether it's health records, pasture movements. The biggest thing to know is don't worry about that historical stuff right away. There's always going to be those rainy days where you can come in and kind of backfill and take care of that. So I think that's where a lot of people kind of fall off the cliff in terms of their record keeping, because they get themselves in a rut where they're trying to add all this historical information on one animal, and it just kind of feels like they're spinning their wheels. So they lose the motivation, they get overwhelmed because they're not seeing or feeling that progress that needs to be focused on.
I will make a note on that historical data. A lot of that is up here. For those who are listening and not watching on YouTube, I'm tapping my forehead because I know when I first started getting involved on my husband's family's operation where we're at today, a lot of that cattle information was up in his head. You know, my father-in-law had a lot of it stored up there. And they were writing stuff down in the books. My husband had a spreadsheet that his sister had started years ago to keep people organized. But it was, what was in their head was not fully recorded. And then when I switched to a software, you know, he started asking me, he'd be like, well, who's her dam again? Or, you know, wasn't she the one? Didn't she have twins this many years ago or whatever it was? And I was like, I didn't have time to put that in right away. But we can work towards that. But it was definitely something that is valuable. But that goes back to that fragmented systems. And it'll be good once we can get it compiled, like you said, on those slower days. But it's a lot to keep track of as well. So active inventory. So, you know, active inventory, set breeding classes, etc. What about pastures, equipment, anything like that, or any other supporting materials? Do you want to touch on that?
Of course, of course. So once you kind of have the core information, like just mentioned, active inventory, breeding status, then you can start kind of working on filling in other areas or of your ranch records, which is exactly like you said, such as your pasture, maybe your pasture movements, pasture activities, equipment, rainfall, herd health records. All of this stuff will gradually fill in to help you to create just that bigger picture. And once that bigger picture kind of starts coming into frame, that's when you're going to be able to, again, start seeing those trends in your operation. And again, those trends are going to help lead you back to those informed decision making.
Okay. Well, Jacqueline, we have covered a lot in a short amount of time when it comes to record keeping, and it was all incredibly valuable and even just great reminders for people who do have fairly organized records. So if there is one thing you want listeners to remember from this conversation, what is that?
I would say a major takeaway from this would be, I hope people are going to kind of look at the whole concept of record keeping not so much as a chore or paperwork that has to get done, but kind of see it more as a means to confidence, to bringing confidence into your operation. And that is going to be confidence in your decision making and also the direction of where you want to actually take your ranching operation down the road. Another one though too, Shaye, just really quick, that I think is very important is once all the legwork is done and you have these incredible records at the ready, just kind of keep in mind that take that time to step back and actually analyze and take a look at what this all means, what all those records mean. That is going to lead you to, again, make those decisions that are going to support and add longevity to your operation.
All right. And Jacqueline, where can listeners go to learn more about CattleMax?
Absolutely. At any time, you are welcome to check out our website at CattleMax.com. You'll be able to just kind of learn and flip through and see what's going on in terms of online cattle records. Book a live demo. It's a free 30-minute live demo where we'll get on and visit with you and see maybe how CattleMax can help support your operation. All of us there at CattleMax are producers working remotely, though, from our ranches. So just know we're happy to answer any questions. If you'd like to email anything in, you're welcome to do so at howdy@cattlemax.com.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me today and sharing all of your personal experience with the listeners.
Of course. Thank you, Shaye. I appreciate it.
All right, folks. Well, remember to go to the description to check out that CattleMax link and learn more if you want to upgrade or update your records and get more organized. And like Jacqueline said, become more confident in your decision-making on your ranch. Also, the best way to support this podcast and all your other favorite podcasts is to leave a rating or review, and better yet, share it with a friend who's going to find this information valuable. Because believe it or not, podcasts still grow best by word of mouth. With that, happy ranching.